So a big Tenx9 welcome to Kirsty Mulholland.
Thank you.
Go for it, Kirsty.
Well, I'm not sure at what point in my gradual acceptance of myself I could actually be deemed to have officially come out as trans, but whenever it started, I've continued to come out ever since. As well as being trans, I'm also a bank manager. I work in business banking, so I deal with business owners all around Northern Ireland, and it's fine. I usually like my job. My customers are in the main a good group of people to work with, and it's my job to look after them. When I transitioned a few years ago, all of my customers had to get used to the idea that I was no longer the person that they had known previously. Let's call the old me Bob. Now, my old name was not Bob, but let's call the old me Bob. And all those customers, they had to get to know that I now had a different name and different pronouns. And to be honest, this aspect of my transition actually went really, really remarkably well. And I spoke about it at Tenx9 this time last year. About 3 or 4 months after starting back to work with my new name and my new gender identity, things were getting back to normal. My transition no longer felt like it was the elephant in the room when I was speaking with customers or speaking with colleagues for that matter. You know, people were getting used to the idea. Then one day in November, one of my colleagues came over to me. Kirsty, yeah? Derek Smith's on the phone for you. His name's not Derek Smith, by the way. Oh, okay, well, put him through. Yeah, there's a problem. Oh, what is it? He's asking for you by your old name. Right. Okay. Earlier that summer, all of my customers had received phone calls and letters explaining about my transition. That my new name was Kirsty. I would no longer be Bob. We had a checklist and everyone, including Derek Smith, had been ticked off the list. So he had received a letter. He had had the phone call. Maybe he'd forgotten. Doesn't strike me as something that you'd just forget, but maybe he had forgotten. Okay, put him through. I'll talk to him. I sort of surprised myself that I was doing this, but 4 months into my transition, I felt pretty confident I could deal with this conversation. Brace yourself, Kirsty. Here we go. Hello, Derek. Yes, is this Bob? No, Derek, this is Kirsty Mulholland. I'm looking to speak to Bob. Well, I used to be Bob, but now I'm Kirsty. I just need you to put me through to Bob then. No, sorry, Derek. You should have had a phone call about this and a letter back in July. I used to be Bob, but now I'm Kirsty. Yes, I know, but I need to speak to Bob. Right. No, there's no Bob anymore. I'm Kirsty now. Check my notes. Did Sinead not speak to you about this a few months ago? Sinead? Oh, yes, Sinead, I know Sinead. Yes. Did Sinead not speak to you to tell you that I wasn't going to be Bob anymore and that I'm Kirsty now? Yes, she did. Yes, I know that. Great. So I was really relieved that I finally seemed to be getting somewhere. But I need to speak to Bob. Okay. I was beginning to wonder how this conversation was going to end. I was beginning to wonder if this conversation was ever going to end. Derek would be one of my older customers, although normally no less on the ball for that. Perhaps it was just a question that, for a man in his early 70s from up the country, the very concept of transitioning from male to female was just so alien that he couldn't take it in. But I wasn't going to be deterred. Derek, there is no Bob anymore. I'm Kirsty now. Yes, I know that, but I need to speak with Bob. Can you just put me through to him? No, I am Bob. Well, I'm not Bob anymore, but I used to be. Yes, I know that, but I need to speak to Bob. At around this point, my boss, who's a very nice woman called Liz, had been listening to my end of the conversation, and she picked up on my fruitless attempts to explain my transition to a man who appeared incapable of grasping the concept. She mouthed something to me, probably, "Are you okay?" So I quickly told Derek that I was just going to put him on hold for a second. He probably thought it was transferring him to Bob. Liz knows Derek of old. And so I explained to her that he'd come through asking to speak to Bob, and he just didn't seem to be getting that I was no longer Bob. She volunteered to speak to him on my behalf, since I was clearly getting nowhere. I took Derek off hold. Derek? Yes, is this Bob? No, Derek. This is Kirsty. I'm not Bob anymore. Derek, Liz is here. Yes, I know Liz. Yes, Liz is going to give you a call now. I'm going to hang up, and Liz is going to give you a call, and she's going to explain what's going on. Is that okay? I'm going to hang up now. Yep, that's okay. That's okay. So that was the end of that. Liz dialed his number on her mobile. Now, obviously, it wasn't the sort of thing she wanted to talk about in an open plan office. So all I heard her say was, "Hello, Derek, how are you?" before she disappeared into a side office to continue the conversation. A few minutes later, she emerged. She was laughing. She was laughing a lot. "Well, first of all," she said, "Derek does know about your transition, and he understands that you are no longer Bob and that you're now Kirsty. He has no problems with it, and he wishes you all the best." Right, well, that's good. That's good. Now, as for this phone call, I think I know why he was confused. He phoned a switchboard and asked to speak to Bob Morrison on the 6th floor, and they put him through to the wrong extension. The poor man. No wonder he was confused. Not only did he not want to speak to me, he couldn't even understand why I was on the call in the first place, banging on and on about my transition that he already knew about. He just wanted to speak to Bob Morrison. I think there are two morals to this story. The first one is that just because you think that somebody has lost the plot doesn't mean they really have. Maybe you're just missing that one critical piece of information that could enable you to understand their viewpoint. The other moral of the story is much simpler. If anyone ever phoned you asking to speak to Bob, always, and I mean always, ask, "Bob who?" Thank you.
Oh, Kirsty, thank you so much. That made me laugh so much. Thank you. You're very good at the amateur dramatics.
Do you think?
Oh God, yeah. That is, I just want to tell people that if they want to hear your original story, it is on the podcast. It's podcast 107. I'm going to hand over to Podrick now, and he's going to close out the night. So it's lovely to see you all. All the best. Bye.
Thanks very much, everybody, for coming along and for telling a story and for listening to stories. Having your story heard is as important as telling a story. So listening is as important a part of the whole storytelling process as telling. So thank you very much, everybody, for all of that. We especially want to thank tonight our 9 storytellers. So we want to thank Fidel McCarolyn and Claire Hall and Richard O'Leary, Elizabeth Barnard and Beth Randall and Gila Meaton and Karen Lane, Malachy O'Doherty and Kirsty Mulholland. Thank you very much to all of them. Give them all the jazz hands. It is magnificent to see you all. I've seen folks from different parts of my life showing up in this room, which is wonderful.